Hi, my name is Steve. I am Ellie's husband. She has asked me to do something for writing.com as a blog posty type thing. I decided that I'd do a video post this time, simply because I can't be asked writing anything really. So today what we're going to do is I'm going to be making a fruitcake. Now the reason that I'm making a fruitcake is we are giving it to a lady who we met online, who it doesn't have fruitcake, doesn't eat it very much, and she decided she wants one. So Ellie kindly offered my services, thank you darling, to make a cake. So we're going to be making today my Aunt Betty's Christmas fruitcake. Now everybody's got a recipe in their life that takes them back to some special point in their life. My Aunt Betty's Christmas cake takes me back to when I was about my son's age at the moment. He's about 12, and I used to spend Christmases with my Auntie Betty, my great Auntie Betty actually, I think, come to think of it, and a cousin second removed. And we used to go up to her house and we used to help her bake this cake, and I've got memories of sitting around the heater at Snells Beach, which is a couple of hours north of where we live at the moment, on the deck and bits and pieces, eating this fruitcake after having a full-on Christmas dinner. So it's quite a special recipe to me, and we've made it just recently for a wedding cake for somebody, for my grandfather actually. So today my daughter Caitlin is going to be my little helper, and she's decided she wants to help me do this, haven't you? Okay, so the first thing you need to know about fruitcakes is they're notoriously difficult to make well. There's a couple of things that can go wrong with them. You can split the eggs, which curdles the egg mixture and the texture, that ruins the texture of the cake, or you can overbeat the mixture, the batter, and that makes the cake tough and it doesn't rise. So I suppose without further ado, let's go. It's very hot over here, so hence the reason the doors are all open. There's a bit of wind blowing. Okay, so the first thing you need is you just need some ordinary butter. Some people will tell you that the quality of the butter matters and yada yada. Quite frankly, I don't think so. Alright, we buy the cheap butter because there's not a lot of difference in the butters, especially in New Zealand. So we need half a pound. So for all the Americans that are going to be watching this, you're going to be like, oh yeah, half a pound. For all of us that use proper maths, that's around about 450 grams or thereabouts. If you're lucky enough, I've got a set of scales here which measures pounds and kilos, and so I can do this very quickly. This butter's pre-softened. We've had it out of the fridge for an hour or so. It's very hot over here at the moment, so it's quite soft. I've got the oven preheating. I've preheated that to 200 degrees to start with, and then just knocked it down to 150. We've got everything we need on the bench here, so we're just going to get into it. If you're going to be cutting soft butter, it is helpful to have a very sharp knife, because it is very soft. Half pound, thereabouts. That was well done, wasn't it? So my wife stopped the camera just before and pointed out that I didn't tell you that the oven's in centigrade, not Fahrenheit. Helps. And also, my brain's a bit frazzled this morning. 450 grams is 1 pound. I need half a pound, which is 225 grams. So that's what that is. All right. So all we're going to do is take the lovely bit of butter we've got there. Katie, you want to put that in there for me? Now, when I bake these cakes, the lovely Nigella Lawson introduced me to dark muscovado sugar. Okay, and she's got many endearing terms for how she describes it. I like it because it gives it a nice caramelly taste to the cake, whereas normal brown sugar doesn't have that very caramelly taste. So once again, I need a half a pound, 220 grams, thereabouts, 225 of dark muscovado sugar, which is in there. Okay, it's about that. Okay, so that goes in. Alright, now it's very important when you're doing fruit cakes, you need to decide what sort of fruit cake you want. I like heavy fruit cakes. I don't like light and fluffy ones. If you like light and fluffy ones, it's a very personal choice, personal preference. Doesn't matter. Okay. If you are going to make a heavy one, don't beat the crap out of the butter. If you want, and if you want a light fruit cake, beat the crap out of the butter. Okay. Essentially, what you're doing when you are mixing a butter or creaming the butter is you're beating air into it, and that air will eventually make the cake rise. Okay. So you will also have a side effect of if you do beat a lot of air into it, you'll also have the side effect of the top will crack on you, and you will have to cut that away before you can ice it as well if you're going to throw some icing over it, which I don't know if we are. My daughter has just run away, which is really nice of her. So this recipe calls for 4 eggs. So we're going to crack 4 eggs into here, which I've just stunningly gone and dropped a bit of eggshell in there. That's fantastic. Is that good, is it? Right. Now, some of the people that will have followed the couple of things that I've done for cakes, obviously, I will have done for writing.com know that I'm a, don't put it in there, know that I'm a baker by trade. Okay, so I can tell you with some fairly good confidence that if all the ingredients are around 22 degrees or thereabouts, what you'll find is that they will beat a lot easier. I'll pour this in there, okay? The reason that I'll do that is so that I don't want it to curdle. Okay? Alright. So you start off when you very first start putting the egg in. You can actually put quite a bit in. Okay. But what you're finding is that most fruitcake recipes have got equal amounts of butter, sugar and eggs, and as you get towards the end of adding the eggs, you saturate the butter with the eggs, and they don't emulsify properly, and therefore that's what causes them to curdle. It takes a little bit of practice. So that was probably about half the eggs to start with in there. You can see the what the muscovado sugar does. It doesn't turn it doesn't go really smooth like brown sugar does. You end up with a grainy look in there, which I quite like. You want to stop that for us, Katie? We'll tip it up. I'm just going to give it a small scrape down, just to bring all the butter up from the bottom. Ooh. I'm also a messy baker, as you can tell. Back on one for me, please.
A bit higher?
No, I think we'll just leave that on one for a little while, and we'll just let that mix. Now while that's mixing, what we'll do is we'll get all the other rest of the ingredients together, okay? Okay, so while the batter is mixing, and what we're going to do is we're going to weigh, thank you Katie, we're going to weigh the rest of the ingredients up. This is a very easy recipe to weigh up. It's half a pound of butter, half a pound of sugar, roughly 200 grams of eggs, or a little bit under half a pound of eggs. It's half a pound of flour, and then 3/4 of a pound of fruit. It's not a complicated recipe, but it works very well. It's very tasty. So that's roughly half a pound of flour. No, don't leave it. Yeah. My daughter is overly keen. Okay, so it calls for a pinch of salt. just there, a little bit over the shoulder for good luck. And it calls for some baking powder. Now, this calls for baking powder. As a rule, I don't add baking powder to my fruitcakes. Okay? If you add baking powder to them, it helps them lift. It's only a very small amount of baking powder in it, but if you add baking powder to it, you will cause it to lift. And if you want to ice it for a fruitcake or any like a Christmas cake or a birthday or anything like that, you don't want the height in the cake, you want it nice and level, so it's easier not to add it. It doesn't do a lot to a nice heavy cake anyway. Okay. This calls for 2 ounces thereabouts of chopped almonds. Now, we didn't have any chopped almonds, so what we're going to do is we're going to chop some. Okay, just bear with me 2 seconds, don't scroll the camera. Hey? No, it's when you are chopping because I'll go everywhere. Okay? So with that, just have to wash my knife. So what we're going to do is about 2 ounces, about that much, of nuts. Okay. Depends on how you like them. If you don't like your nuts really crunch, I like to taste my almonds in it. I like to see it and feel it. It adds texture to the cake. If you don't like that, use ground, slithered, doesn't matter. They're there for 2 reasons. One is for texture, and the other is for flavour. So as long as you're actually putting them in there and getting that flavour, it doesn't really matter how you get them in there. How's my eggs doing, huh?
Yeah, it looks like it's just about ready. It looks like it's ready for the next one.
You reckon?
Yeah.
I reckon so too. It's looking good. Okay, so we're just starting to add the eggs very slowly, a little bit at a time. And that'll help with that. It gives us enough time to do this. This is the most tedious part of this cake. What's that, sorry?
Can I say something?
You can say something if you like, sweetie, yeah?
And normal chopped almonds are usually finely chopped, but we're just roughly chopping them, really.
We are, aren't we? We are very roughly chopping them.
As you can see, they're flying everywhere.
They are, aren't they? That's why I said I'll do it rather than you. As you can see, my daughter's rather precocious. Loves to be centre of attention. Don't you, honey?
So we're measuring out our fruit mix here, and what the fruit mix has got in it, it's got this, and then it's also got some fruit mince in it for fruit mince cakes, but not really using it for that. It's got port and whiskey to soak in, and it's been soaking for 3 months. A month.
Why do we soak it in alcohol?
Okay, well, a couple of reasons you soak the fruit in alcohol. One is for flavour, okay, and the other one is because it makes the fruit nice and soft. So if you were to open these fruit in here, because they're dried, they'll be hard, okay, whereas if we open this up, now this, okay, and you have a look at these ones, see how nice and soft they are? Okay, that's why, and that's because when you bake the cake, if you add hard fruit, you will end up with hard fruit in your cake. If you add soft fruit, you'll end up with nice moist soft fruit, a nice moist soft cake, because the fruit will try and draw the moisture out of the cake into itself, and your cake will be really dry. So as you can see, the egg mix is now nicely mixed together. It's not curdled, which takes a little bit of skill to do sometimes. Okay, it takes a bit of practice to get it like that. So what we've got here is we've got the fruit mix that I've basically taken out and just weighed up. That's going to go straight in there to start with, minus that. Not yet. Dry ingredients go in directly after you do this. Okay. So what you do is you add the fruit. You add the fruit mixture in there. What have I done with it? It's around there. Like that. And you give it a small mix like this, Katie. Okay. So what you're doing there is you're mixing all the fruit around like that. Okay. And that makes the fruit mix all through the cake nice and evenly. You then pour this in. Like that. Put it down. Now, what you do is you mix this until it is just starting to come together. So you see all the big lumps of flour are gone, it's just starting to come together there, and you take it out. The reason you do that, what did I say right at the beginning could go wrong with cakes?
It could overbeat.
That's right.
So now we're hand beating it so that it doesn't overbeat.
Very good, Caitlin. So you've been paying attention.
I actually know this anyways.
Did the viewers get that at home? So you take that off there like that, and then you're folding it. Okay. So you're taking mix from the bottom and you're putting it on the top. You're taking mix from the bottom and you're putting it on the top. Mix from the bottom, putting it on the top. Here we go. It's difficult, eh? Yeah, I'll do it. Right, so we've got my tin that I made earlier and the pre-made batter. Okay, basically what we're going to do is just put it in here, stick it in the oven, and it will bake. Nice and simple. So, as you can see, I've only just mixed that. There's actually parts of the batter that are only just mixed, and that's where you want it. If you have a nice clear batter, which is what you want when you're doing some things, you will find the fruit cake a bit tough. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this. If you don't like getting your hands dirty, you can use a spatula like I'm doing at the moment, just to spread it around. So, you want to try and make it as level as possible on top, so it bakes nice and evenly.
What's the other way of doing it if you do want to get your hands dirty?
Use a bit of water. So what you can do, you deal with me. A little bit of water in your mixing bowl, like that. Make sure your hands are nice and clean. Mine will be shortly. Okay. Like that. And you dip the fingers in there. And you pat it around with your fingers. What you're doing is the water stops it sticking to your hands, like I did to the top of my hand there. Just enables you to get it in there just to firm it down just a little bit. Like so. It's like squishing mud between your toes. So it doesn't take very long. And one of the things that you want to do, thank you Katie, appreciate that. One of the things you want to do when you've got a fruit cake like this, the last thing you want to do is just pick it up and drop it. And what that does is that helps all of the mixture settle in, all the air, push out all the air bubbles come out. It's especially important when you are making a cake for a wedding cake that you have a nice level cake, nice and straight on the sides. Spend a lot of time on the preparation of your tin. I haven't spent a lot of time on this tin today, but you spend a lot of time on the preparation of the tin, making sure the paper's all nice and even. It will make your life a hell of a lot easier when you come to ice it. Alright, basically you grab that, then it goes in your oven, like so. Open it up, make sure the temperature's set on 150. That will take around about somewhere between an hour and a half and 3 hours, just depending on the heat of your oven, where it is hot and all the rest of that. It's 150 degrees Celsius. Thank you, Katie. Don't ask me what that is in Fahrenheit because I don't know. Alright? And that is how you make Aunt Betty's Christmas cake. What we'll do is, once that's finished baking, we'll get a shot of it all baked for you in a couple of hours. Okay, so what we've got is we've got our cooked cake. Now, last night, because it takes about 3 hours to bake, we didn't bother to film it last night of me taking it out. There's a couple of ways you can tell a cake's cooked when it's coming out. One is you can use the spring test, which is you lightly touch the middle of the cake, and when it's hot, if it springs back towards you, then it's essentially cooked. Make sure you do it in the middle, don't do it on the outside. Two, you can get a knife, a skewer, anything with a point, a pair of scissors, don't use your finger. Press it into the cake, leave it in there a couple of seconds, and gently pull it out. If it comes away clean, or just with a couple of crumbs on it, then it's cooked. If it comes away with mix on it, needs to stay in there a little longer. Another way, or another, I suppose, a helpful tip, is if it's starting to just pull away from the sides of the paper here, you can pretty much guarantee it's cooked. So, cooked cake. A couple of things you need to have when you are icing sugar. A cake water if you can do one. Now, you can get these from most bakeries or cake shops will sell them to you, or you can do what I've done and use a nice Corona packet to make one. You'll obviously need some white icing that we've got here, a sharp knife which I will grab here, just a little one, and you'll need a serrated edge knife to cut the top of the cake off. First thing you do is you take the cake. This is why I like my cakes solid, because you can do this with them. You can essentially do anything you like with them and they won't fall apart. Okay, so pull the bottom off, pull sides off, and you've got one fruit cake. Don't drop the tin. So, a couple of ways you can do this. If you want it to look nice and professional, always ice it bottom side up. If you're not worried about that and you just want to ice it the top side up and have the rounded face. It's completely personal choice as to how you want it. Alright, I much prefer mine because of my I suppose background, to have a nice flat surface on the top. So what you do, just with a serrated edge knife, just go around, cut it off nice and level. Thus you've got your nice, beautiful, glistening cake, as Nigella would say. Devilishly good. All the rest of that jazz. Alright. Once you've got it to that stage, there's not a lot else you want to do with that. You can soak it in alcohol if you want. That will give it a nice flavour on the top. You can put a thin layer of icing around the outside of it. That'll help the icing adhere to it. Just depends on what you want to do with it. I'm not too phased this time as it's not going really for presentation, it's just going to a lady for free. So you need to start preparing your white icing. Okay, varying different qualities of white icing that you can buy, depends on what you're going for. These come from the supermarket. You can get the ones from a proper bake shop, they'll be completely different. Depends on what you're doing with it and what you want to do with it. If you are going to do a cake for a wedding or like a nice event, go with the more expensive ones, they are nicer. Okay, so most of these icings come packaged up in cellophane or an airtight seal. If you've got any of the icing left over, make sure you keep it in an airtight container of some sort, wrap it in cling or glad wrap or whatever you like to call it, hamster wrap. My wife gave me a filthy lip for the hamster wrap thing, by the way.
I was trying to remember what the Americans call their wrap.
What do the Americans call their wrap, Katie? No, Katie's shrugging her shoulders as well.
Like Surrey wrap or something?
No.
I'm not sure.
I'm sure you Americans can tell us when we post this what you guys call it. Okay, it's a very, very hot day here in Auckland today, so this icing is going to go really, really soft really quickly. Okay. One of the most important things that you need to have when you are icing cakes is a clean bench. The white icing will pick any dirt up that you've got on your bench. So whenever you're doing this, it's clean bench, clean utensils every time. Otherwise you'll end up with bits of crap in your icing and it won't look very nice. Katie, do you want to go get me a tea towel, please? Thank you. And cut. Okay, so just in that little intermission, we went and got me a tea towel. We snaffled a bit of the cake mix here that I cut off the top, and it's a little dry. And so what we're going to do is, just to help moisten it up, this lady's going to luck in. I've got some very expensive scotch. Okay, and what you can do is this with your this is going to be a little bit difficult because it's not an easy bottle to hold. You stick your thumb over the top of the thing and you just dribble a little bit on there like that, and that will just help moisten the cake. That'll go right through the cake. Give it a nice flavour as well. It's a very expensive bottle of whiskey, so the lady should be very grateful when she gets this. Alright, so on with the cake icing. Like I said, very important, make sure your bench is completely clean. When you get this icing, it comes in a very hard lump, like so. It's very, very hard. So you need to give it a little bit of a knead before you can do anything with it. It will go very soft very quickly, especially in the heat that we've got at the moment. Just like that. And all you're doing is just equalising everything up. What you don't want to do is you don't want to add too much icing sugar to it, because you'll just dry it out and you'll end up having to try and add liquid to it to make it moist, and it's just a pain in the ass. So you end up with a nice ball like so. Get your icing sugar. Now, a couple of ways you can do it. You can get a sieve, sprinkle it around like so. Get that. Push it out. Now, if you see what I mean, my hands obviously had just a little bit of something just there. Now you can actually see just on there, it's picked it up. White icing will pick up absolutely anything off your hands. Okay, if you end up, don't panic, just get a little knife and you just pull it out, like so. Not a big drama. Like that. Now, I've only got my daughter's little rolling pin today because my rolling pin's a bit dirty today because I've been using it. So we're just going to use my daughter's rolling pin. Okay. You can use anything you like as long as it gets flat. You can use a jar if you really want. Okay. That's all it is to do is make it flat. It doesn't really matter. Okay. So making sure you've got enough icing sugar, bottom and top, like so. You just want to roll it out. Roll it out, nice and flat. Try and keep it nice and even. What? Don't make it too thin. If you make it too thin, it will crack and fall off on the cake. You want it about a third again as big as the cake, like so. Lift it up, put it over the top, there. Bring that back on there. Always have a nice overhang on it, and then you gently just press it into the cake, like so. My cake is moving on my cake board, as you can see, because I didn't do anything to it. If you're lucky enough, like I am, have one of these, use it. Nice smooth top. You can see that I didn't do a lot of work in the preparation of this cake. So, there's two reasons I did that. One, so I can show you what will happen if you don't. And two, because I'm not really phased with the lady it's going to. But you can see I didn't plug any of the holes in the cake. You can see them quite clearly with that. The icing sugar, the icing will mould to any defect in the cake. So if you've got a little hole like that, the easiest thing to do, just grab a little bit of dough like so. Just before you put the top on it, you just press that into there, press it in nice and flat, and then when you roll the icing over it, you'll end up with a nice smooth cake. Okay. Then if you've got a pizza cutter, it's really good. Oh, we've got one. Pizza cutter. Yes, we have. If you haven't got a pizza cutter, you can just use a knife. If you've got a pizza cutter, it's really easy. Just go around the cake. So, lift it away, pick it off, smooth it out. Like that. Just get your knife. So, done. One fruitcake, ready to ice. And that's all there is to it. So, tune in next time for your helpful hints from Steve.
That good?
Okay?
That good?
Yep, alright, hang on up.
Oops. That'll be nice, having a video of Dad icing, like writing on a card.
Lumpy chocolate.
What?
Lumpy chocolate.
Yep.
Two G's.
Yep.
I or Y?
IE.
Right, where's your little nose?